People read Emil Cioran and think, alright man, calm down. And honestly, I get it. With knee-slapping quotes like, "It is not worth the bother to kill yourself, since you always kill yourself too late." Or, "Since all life is futility, then the decision to exist must be the most irrational of all." It's easy to read Cioran and think, is this guy for real? His mother once told him if she had known how unhappy he would become, she would have aborted him, which delighted him. And honestly, that might be the most tragic thing about Cioran. Imagine loving your child and slowly realizing they experience consciousness itself as suffering. But is that why he writes, to make us sad? I think people misunderstand what Cioran was actually doing. I don't think he was trying to describe an objective reality. I think he was trying to describe a psychological state. Because human beings survive through illusion. Hope, meaning, identity, the feeling that tomorrow matters. But what happens when consciousness starts stripping those things away? What happens when you begin to see through every comforting narrative you once depended on? It's like watching a movie after someone spoiled the ending. The scenes still happen, the music still plays, but something essential disappears. Wonder. And once wonder disappears, life begins to feel different. Not tragic, but exhausting. We all suffer, but I think what obsessed Emil was consciousness. Especially the kind of consciousness that becomes impossible to turn off. Insomnia appears constantly throughout his writing. Insomnia traps you inside awareness. At night, there are no distractions, only thought. And the longer a person remains awake inside their own mind, the stranger existence starts to feel. Cioran writes like someone who's lost the ability to naturally participate in life. Like someone who could still observe happiness but no longer experience it directly. And I think that's why people call him melodramatic. Because most people only encounter fragments of his writings, like a quote, that are stripped from the emotional state behind them. Cioran wasn't writing instruction manuals for nihilism. He was documenting what consciousness feels like after wonder collapses. Which brings me to another Emil. Emil from NieR. Or more specifically, NieR Gestalt, since that was the version I played. I've always wondered if Yoko Taro named his Emil after Cioran. Emil is also his avatar that he uses to represent himself, which I've always found interesting as well. But there's no public confirmation of this, so maybe it's coincidence. But emotionally, the connection feels real to me, because Emil from NieR embodies the same kind of suffering Cioran describes. It's not loud suffering, it's not rage, but fatigue. The exhaustion of continuing to exist after innocence has been destroyed. What makes this Emil tragic isn't simply what happens to him, it's the fact that he continues afterwards. He survives the loss of his identity, the loss of his normality, the loss of his belonging, and eventually he becomes something almost unbearable to look at. A consciousness that outlived the life it was supposed to belong to. That's why his characters stay with people, because beneath all the fantasy and tragedy, there's something deeply human there. The fear that awareness itself can become isolating. That once you see too much, you can never fully return to the version of you that existed before. And then there's the third Emil. This is a real story shared by Law right here on YouTube. I'll credit the creator and source the description because this story genuinely stayed with me. This Emil was staying alone in a hotel after an argument with his girlfriend, who he loves. He chose to book a hotel rather than be in the dark house. They were at each other's throats and he was exhausted. But in the hotel, unable to sleep, he eventually drifted off. And then he woke up, went to the bathroom, flushed the toilet. And then he woke up, went to the bathroom, flushed the toilet. And then he woke up again, still in his bed. I've felt this myself. It's another reason this story stuck with me. My experience felt like a day within a day. No loop, just the universe throwing me a bone like, hey bro, did you know you can do this? And that's not something I've said out loud before. But here's someone else sharing their experience of the same thing. My experience was gentle, but for this Emil, it kept happening. Again and again and again and again. And every time he believes he's finally awake, this completely destroys certainty. Normally, waking up restores reality. Really, try and imagine it. Right now, you wake up and your day so far has just been a dream. It's as simple as that. That's how it feels. When that does happen, you'll probably lay frozen in your bed for a while if you're anything like me, but I digress. In a dream loop, waking up becomes meaningless. Consciousness can no longer tell the difference between illusion and truth. And eventually, the mind starts to go mad. There's a moment in the story where Emil looks into the hotel mirror and realizes his face looks different. When I first heard the story, I thought I knew what was coming next, but I didn't hear what I was expecting to hear. Mirrors in general unsettle me, especially black mirrors and their subjective reflections. You can probably use a black mirror to induce a dream loop. Maybe I should talk about that in my next video, but keeping on track, a reflection is technically you, but emotionally it never fully feels like you. And dream looping weaponizes that feeling. The point I'm getting at is it captures a fear that consciousness itself may be unreliable. And all of this starts making Cioran's obsession with insomnia feel a lot less melodramatic. Because sleep is supposed to rescue us from consciousness. But what happens when sleep becomes another prison? I think all three Emils are ultimately describing the same human fear. The fear of awareness without escape. Emil Cioran, losing faith in meaning. Emil from NieR, losing identity and belonging. Our third Emil losing certainty itself. But all of them arrive at the same destination. Consciousness trapped inside itself. And maybe that's why ignorance is bliss. Because human beings seem to require a certain amount of illusion in order to psychologically survive. We need hope, we need immersion, narrative, emotional distance from death and repetition. Without those things, awareness starts consuming the experience of being alive. Truth begins stripping away wonder, and consciousness stops feeling like a gift. I don't think Emil Cioran hated life. I think he experienced awareness at a level that made ordinary life difficult, and maybe that's why people misunderstand him. I think ignorance is bliss because wonder depends on limitation. Human beings were never meant to experience life as pure objective truth. We experience it through stories, through emotion, through selective blindness. We fall in love because we ignore endings. We pursue meaning because we ignore death. We keep moving because we ignore how repetitive existence can become. But Cioran kept looking. All three arrive at the same place, that too much awareness destroys our ability to feel immersed in the world, consciousness without shelter. The beauty is still there, the music still plays, life continues, but wonder quietly leaves the room.